Hi, and thank you so much for checking out this session on team dynamics. I'm so excited to be a part of the online summit, and I want to thank Carl and the whole team at the Bureau of Digital for including me. Today, we're going to be talking about what it takes to be a conscious leader and to have a high-performing team. So get ready to stretch your brain, and you're going to have to stretch a little bit of your heart too. Yes, we're going to be talking about some heart issues today. I also want to mention before we begin that if you don't necessarily consider yourself a leader or you're not officially in some type of leadership role, please don't think this session isn't for you. It is. I want everyone listening right now to understand that we all lead in either big or small ways at work and in our daily lives, and we all have impact. That impact can be either positive, negative, or neutral. And if you want to be a really good leader, then you're someone who desires to have a positive impact on all those around you. And this is an option that's open to everybody, regardless of your role. So first, let me start off by introducing myself. My name is Traci Barrett. I'm a co-founder of Navigate the Journey. We are a company that specializes in the digital space. We help agencies and studios and marketing consultancies with strategic planning as well as leadership development, and we help out with virtual HR services as well. So we have a great history with a lot of the agencies that are probably tuning in today to the online summit. So hello to all of our friends. For those of you who aren't familiar with Navigate the Journey, I just want to encourage you to check us out at navigatethejourney.com. Next, I want to give us an overview of today's session so you know where we're going. We're going to kick off with talking about team dynamics and leadership in our current cultural environment. What is a conscious leader? What does conscious leadership mean? And why is it needed now more than ever? And then 3 intelligences that are needed to succeed and be a conscious leader and a high-performing team. And then I'm going to give you some tools and tips on each of those intelligences to help you get there. So let's dig in. Like I said in the beginning, we all have impact. That impact is either positive, negative, or neutral. Being a good leader or having a good team is not a given. Many of us have worked for, unfortunately, for bad leaders, and many of us have been a part of dysfunctional teams. And we know the damage that they do to our morale and they can do to our business. Some of us have worked for leaders who are neutral, which are, like I like to consider, leaders that aren't tuned in or connected. Or we've worked with teams that are kind of neutral. They don't really strive for excellence per se, or striving to make any real mark on the world. I find those experiences actually just as sad. And in some cases, they can be damaging. As you can see in this slide, I'm kind of pointing out what the emotional reaction is to the different impact that different types of leaders and teams can have on you. So neutral leaders and teams and the ineffectiveness that comes along with them can leave us feeling angry or disgusted. They can also leave us feeling like we've wasted our time or ability. So my hope for leaders and teams is that they have a positive impact, and you have to commit to that, right? That you work with excellence in mind, that you have mission and vision that reaches outside and beyond yourselves. But this doesn't necessarily come easily, and it doesn't necessarily come naturally. Peter Drucker, who's well known as the father of modern management, once said, "Only 3 things happen naturally in organizations: friction, confusion, and underperformance. Everything else takes leadership." It's not just leadership, it's conscious and human leadership, selfless leadership. But this is rare and hard to come by. Why? Well, our society today doesn't seem to foster the type of human connection that's needed for this kind of leadership. We're a culture that's more technologically connected than ever, as we all know, but our level of community is at an all-time low. So in 2000, kind of at the, when the height of the internet was really going and we were really beginning to become more technologically connected and inundated, a book was written called Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam, and he did a ton of research. And in this book, Putnam shows how we were beginning to increasingly disconnect from family, friends, and neighbors. He warned that our stock of social capital, as he called it, the very fabric of our connectedness with each other, had plummeted, impoverishing our lives and communities. And his research showed that overall, as Americans, we signed fewer petitions, we belonged to fewer organizations that meet in person, that we knew our neighbors less and less, that we met with friends with less frequency, and even socialized with our families less often. And then he pointed out we were even bowling alone. So more Americans than ever had begun bowling, but they weren't bowling in leagues. They were bowling alone. So you see the changes in how we've worked together, our remote structures even, streaming devices, constant digital communication, has led to a vast reduction in kind of human live interaction. And that's dramatically affected how we're able to foster and maintain solid and real community. And even if we wanted to rise above all of this chaos, right, all of this technology and all of this, stuff that's coming at us, we still have other factors that are working against us, like our overscheduled calendars. And then, of course, the biggest reason of all, which is one that I want to tap into today, and that's our own heart and our own mindset. Another interesting shift that we're seeing is this shift kind of from the information age to the conceptual age, which Daniel Pink wrote about in his book, A Whole New Mind. And this was written a few years ago, but he was talking about the shift from the information age where we were no longer just developing information or moving out of sort of this survival mentality into really a conceptual mentality. So here he says we're moving from an economy and a society built on the logical, linear, computer-like capabilities of the information age to an economy and a society built on the inventive, the empathic, the big picture capabilities of what's rising in its place, the conceptual age. And I like us to think about that conceptual age as we start to look at the different types of intelligences needed to navigate this conceptual age. But let's look at it first through the lens of our world, which is the digital studio or agency or marketing consultancy. Like, how does this kind of disconnected yet connected digital world combine with the shift into this kind of conceptual age? How does it affect us? Well, many in the digital world are focused on craft and ability, right? The soft skill sets can sometimes take a back seat or a second seat. And oftentimes autonomy can sometimes be preferred to collaboration or actually can just kind of organically begin to happen. And this is a struggle because, for the best innovation, you actually kind of want to have a balance here between autonomy and collaboration. And I find that the balance works best when you empower the individual for ideation while creating opportunities for collaboration. So we want that individual to go off autonomously and sort of think and create and develop and design, but we also want to come back together and celebrate those ideas and build upon them and what's taken place autonomously and then collaborate to build upon them. So what we find is that sometimes the pendulum can swing one way or the other. So we can have teams that have too much autonomy. And what happens when we have too much autonomy? We have apathy and disengagement, right? People just become sort of isolated, and then they're disconnected from the big picture or from the company's ultimate goals. But what's interesting too is sometimes when we go into agencies, we can see that they've leaned too much on collaboration and we don't have a lot of independent thinking. And then what happens? We have lower accountability. People aren't holding themselves accountable to their own goals or to their own idea generation, or they're less personally motivated. And this is actually an interesting kind of phenomenon that we're seeing. It's a hard balance for digital agencies to manage, especially ones that operate remotely, right? But again, we can see just as much issues with those that are all located together. It has been found, though, that the most creative teams in an organization are those that have individuals that have been allowed to kind of create and develop those creative ideas, and then they have this confidence to share and debate ideas openly in a supportive group, like a safe environment, and there's no competing for recognition or holding back ideas for themselves. And that sounds pretty dreamy, right? To have that kind of environment. Do you have that kind of environment? I kind of want us to think about that as teams. If you don't, or maybe only partially have it, how can we create it? How can we create that type of a team? Well, we have to start with the individual. Each of us, as a member of a team or a leader of a team, have to make a conscious choice to be either an inward participant or an outward participant of our team. Will we work primarily with ourself in mind, or will we work with the people around us at the top of our mind? I like to call it, will we work for me or will we work for we? And you can see here there's a balance. Which way is the balance leaning for you? In extremely competitive environments, sometimes our knee-jerk reaction is to enter into a constant mindset of comparison. This actually happens a lot too. I see with agencies that I coach that tend to lean more autonomously. It's like a sticky trap that's kind of hard to escape, and it's on the rise, not just because of autonomous working, but I also see it because of the rise of social media, right? The comparison trap is this tiring loop, right, of comparing ourselves to others, competing with them. And it causes us to kind of orchestrate or manipulate or maneuver all to get ahead or to get noticed in some positive way. And oftentimes what I find is a lot of it's unconscious. Like we don't really see it happening or realize that we're even doing it ourselves, but we do feel this underlying uncomfortableness, right? And it can become a common practice in the workplace. A competitive environment can be good for business, but bad for teams. Well, besides all of this just being exhausting, comparison is the key to killing your own personal joy in life. Remember, nobody wins in the constant game of comparison. But there is a way to have a fun and competitive environment while maintaining a strong team. And that's when the competition is pointed more outward instead of inward. The best sports teams know, and here's one of them right here, the Cubs, that they're competing against other teams, but they don't compete against each other. Like the best sports teams lift each other up, right? And they support each other, they hold each other accountable in order to win the game. And the alternative is to live in a way where we care about the success of our teammates and celebrate their success as much as their own. Now let me say that again. Celebrate their success as much as our own. I mean, this is hard, right? Because our ego gets in the way. We have to let go of ourselves to do with this. We have to put the team first, the mission of the company first in order to achieve this. It's a mind shift, right? We must find more pleasure and the greater good rather than placing the most value in our own, let's say, accumulation or accomplishments. In the book, The Wisdom of Teams, he talks about how this is a key component to taking your team to that, from that average team to the real, true high-performing team. A high-performing team is a hard thing to get to because of this last component. You have to be deeply committed to each other's personal growth and success. Can your team say that? Can you guys look around the table and agree that you're deeply committed to each other's personal growth and success, not just your own? Philosophically, it shouldn't be such a hard mind shift to make, but it is, right? But let me remind you, research shows that when people are on their deathbeds, and you guys hear this all the time, right? That they don't wish for another day in the office. But what do they wish for? They wish that they had more opportunities for positive impact on other people's lives, whether it's their friends, their relatives, or their coworkers. Clay Christensen, I really love all that he's written about, but this is one of my favorite quotes. Don't worry about the level of individual prominence you have achieved. Worry about the individuals you have helped become better people. This is my final recommendation. Think about the metric by which your life will be judged and make a resolution to live every day so that in the end your life will be judged a success. Committing to that mind shift takes effort. It takes a lot of self-awareness, and oftentimes it takes a bit of coaching as well. While many still value friendship and interaction, And I see that all the time in the agencies and studios that we go into, that people really do value each other's friendship and interaction, but not a ton of time is spent and attention is spent or paid to the art of becoming a great team, or even the art of becoming a great leader. And to me, it's an art. It's a craft, right? Just like designing or developing or marketing, it takes a conscious honing of your skills and a desire to be better. Oftentimes, the climb to the top doesn't even include an assessment of the skills necessary to lead a team. We see this around us. People move up based purely on their skill, right, or their talent, not necessarily on the soft skills like ability to manage, direct, or lead. Or, when promoted, they're not trained on these other skills. And most leaders have a high, what we call analytical intelligence, or IQ, right? The ability to kind of take in information. IQ is important, and essentially the fourth intelligence that we're not going to talk much about, because I'm assuming that the people we're working with have that proper ability. But what the shift is, the paradigm that's happening here, is that IQ is no longer enough. We've begun to look at our leaders and peers through a different lens, through different paradigms. And I want to look at a paradigm today that I first read about in a book by the CEO of Whole Foods, John Mackey, called Conscious Capitalism. And he writes a lot in the book about what he calls the conscious leader. And he argues that there are three types of intelligence shared by the conscious leader. There's emotional intelligence, there's spiritual intelligence, and there's systems intelligence. And he recognizes that having a high IQ without also having these three other intelligences, emotional, spiritual, and systems, is inadequate and can actually become harmful to an organization. So let's look at each of these. And I want you to consider your own walk, your own journey, and where you might be with each of these intelligences. So first, we're going to look at emotional intelligence. And it's gotten a lot of buzz over the last few years. It's personally one of my favorite tools in coaching owners and leaders in the digital space. So EQ basically combines the intrapersonal, which is understanding oneself, with the interpersonal, which is understanding others. So self-awareness is the core kind of what it means to be more conscious. It's the first pillar of emotional intelligence. And then empathy, which is the ability to feel and understand what others are feeling, is the second pillar. And I found through all my coaching that in working with teams and leaders at a number of different companies, that EQ is the grand differentiator. It's often, for me, what takes a good leader to a great leader. Understanding yourself better, leaning into understanding how others perceive you and how you react emotionally in different situations is key to connecting and communicating well with your teammates. Also, learning how to read people and adjust to their behavioral styles can help you take your team to new heights. So how? How do we increase our emotional intelligence? Well, two ways. It's all about development and self-awareness. First, personally with the individual, and then secondly, as a group, as a team. So for personal development, you need to get aware, right? You need to get a role model or a mentor or a coach or find people that you can surround yourself with that are going to help you grow and be more honest with you. And as a coach, one of the tools that I like to use, and I just often suggest it to everybody that I meet, is an EQI assessment. And this is sort of the graph here. You can find a lot of certified facilitators out there that will send you a link, and it takes about 20 minutes to take, and you get a huge report back really outlining how you fall out in each one of these categories. Self-perception, how you perceive yourself, how you express yourself, your interpersonal skills, your decision-making skills, and your stress management. And you get a wealth of information back. You can see what your strengths are, what you need to lean into. You can see your blind spots with strategies for action on how to really understand how those blind spots might be tripping you up for success. So I just really encourage you to get behind your own emotional intelligence measurement. Also, as a team and team development and team awareness, it's really fun actually to get the team together and become more self-aware as a group. We use tools like DISC, and I know other people use tools like Myers-Briggs. It really, when you use these tools and you bring the group together, to me, this is when you're really putting human back in human resources, right? Which has become kind of a not so great term anymore. But to me, it's like developing a team health department, right? Where individual self-awareness, leadership training, and team development are all the goals. And DISC Profile helps you understand that because you can actually plot the entire team and see what their behavioral style are and how does that keep us from communicating the best that we can possibly communicate. And again, it's not just fun, but it really takes our team to the next level. And it also teaches us so much about our client interaction as well. I mean, it's just all around a great tool. Then another great tool is Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's a great book. Go through it together as a team. Really, really dig deep on where you fall with your trust level with each other, which is the foundation of everything. Your conflict, healthy conflict and constructive debate, do you have that? Or is it kind of a groupthink mentality, or do you have unhealthy conflict? Are you achieving commitment together? Are you embracing true accountability where we're holding each other accountable? And are we collectively focusing on results? You can even do team surveys where you can see how you're falling out, low, medium, high on each one of these aspects, these key functions, and then develop a plan to get better, to take your team to the next level. Just a really, really great tool. Lastly, I'll say on emotional intelligence, if you're sitting there still wondering, is this really important? It seems a little touchy-feely to me. Do I have to be that self-aware? One thing to remember is that the people you work with, especially if you're in a leadership role, when they look at you, they're thinking 3 questions typically. They're thinking, do you like me? Which means, do they feel empathy from you? They're also thinking, can you help me? Are you competent? Do you really have that IQ, that ability, that talent to be doing your job? And lastly, do I trust you? Do you have the character that I really feel like you should have in order for me to trust you in this work environment? And getting behind these things is really important to connecting with your teammate. And this last question is a great segue into the next intelligence, right? The character piece, spiritual intelligence. Mackey describes spiritual intelligence as the intelligence with which we access our deepest meanings, values, purposes, higher motivations. So it's our moral intelligence, right? It gives us the innate ability to distinguish right from wrong. It's the intelligence with which we exercise goodness, truth, beauty, and compassion in our lives. I like to talk about it as character and purpose. This is really the inner drives. Like it's what helps take us from that me to the we mentality that we were talking about earlier. Character is the engine of great leadership. A leader without character is a leader we can't admire or aspire to be like. I mean, let's face it. If we really feel like our leader is lacking in character, I don't care what results they put forward or even if they turn a profit. A leader without character is somebody we don't want to follow. It's just somebody we have to follow. Our world, man, is in great need of leaders with strong character. And I want to encourage you today to be the leader people want to follow, right? And in order to be that kind of leader, I need to be tuned into my own moral intelligence. I need to care about what's right and do it, even if it's at the cost of profits or prestige. But do it well. But to do it well, we need to have people in our lives who hold us accountable and who will actually listen to. And that takes humility and vulnerability. And those are 2 scary words for some of us, right? But man, if we can get behind it and master these 2 pillars here, it's so worth it. Because a leader with high spiritual intelligence understands their own purpose and they understand their own meaning in life. And they take it one step further and they commit to understanding the purpose, meaning, and direction of their company. So I'll give you an example of how this sort of plays out in the workplace. A good example of somebody that I think has high SQ is Howard Schultz. If you haven't read this book, Onward, it's really a great read. I really encourage you to kind of at least flip through it and really hear some of his stories. But it's basically based around, in 2008, Starbucks went through a really difficult time. Its business was declining. It had to close 600 underperforming stores, and it eliminated 12,000 jobs. And it had to take a $340 million asset write-off for the stores that it closed. And basically, Schultz believed that Starbucks had moved away from its higher purpose. It had gotten off track by chasing after growth and higher financial returns. And it happened after several years after he had stepped down as CEO. So the book kind of explains how and why he decided to return to Starbucks as the CEO. And basically his goal was to reconnect the company to its core purpose. And he says, from the beginning, we always believed that the only way we could exceed the expectations of our customers was to exceed the expectations of our people. So given the external pressures, the cataclysmic financial crisis, it was time to return to the intimacy of communicating directly with our people, galvanizing our organization against a core purpose, and asking our people to understand what was at stake. I really love that quote. His emphasis there is on communication, clarity, and purpose. So after Schultz returned and he recommitted Starbucks, to its core purpose and its sense of authenticity, the company actually experienced this amazing turnaround. So their same store sales accelerated from a -6 that it was in 2009 to a +8 in 2011. The net profits more than tripled. The value of the stock increased from about $7 to more than $50 in over 3 years. So you see all this purpose and direction and mission and vision. It's more than just a touchy-feely thing. You actually get some serious results when you raise your spiritual intelligence and you think about it not just from your own personal point of view, but from your company's point of view. So how? How do we increase our spiritual intelligence? Well, 3 things here. You got to get clear on your own personal mission and vision. You got to get clear on your team or your company's mission and vision. And you got to get clear on your team core values. So first, get clear on yourself, right? First, develop your own personal mission and vision. And yes, you can have a personal mission and vision. If you haven't written a personal mission statement or a personal vision statement, it is so life clarifying, and it's really a cool process to do. And I encourage you, if you get out a sheet of paper, get some time alone with a journal, and really think about what your why is. You have to look inward, right? We all know what our what is. We know what we do for a living or what we do on a day-to-day basis, but why do you do it? Why do you exist? What do you want your impact to be through what you do, through what your talents and gifts are? I mean, we have a process that helps people discover this. It's called Life Plan, and it's a pretty intense 2-day process, but it's worth it. You come out the other side, not with just a mission and vision statement, but also a strategic plan for your life. We really encourage especially the owners and leaders that we work with to go through the process, because out of it, they're able to then look at their company and decide, how does that fit with their personal mission and vision? What changes do we need to make? But it's not just work related. We look at, where are you putting your time and energy in all the different domains of your life? And are you living your mission out in all those different domains? And even if you don't want to experience a life plan, there's lots that you can do it on your own at home. Michael Hyatt wrote a great book called Living Forward, kind of a how-to book on life plan. And but just remember, no matter what you do or how you do it, that those people that define their life mission and goals, like actually write it down and define it and set goals, achieve those goals, triple-fold than those who don't. So next, get some clarity on your team's direction and purpose. What's your organization's mission and vision? Have you actually articulated it? Every team needs context. They need to know where they're going and why. And it's hard to increase your spiritual intelligence if you're working for a company that, well, doesn't have clear mission and vision for the future, right? It's kind of hard to feel connected, hard to feel a sense of purpose. So to get there, it needs to be a team effort. I mean, we love to bring teams together and really have a great time kind of putting the pieces of mission and vision and strategy together. And making it a team discovery-based process really gets everybody on board, excited and motivated, and really enables you to outline a great strategy for the coming year. Lastly, core values. I know everybody talks about core values, but core values are such an easy tool to really solidify your DNA and to up your spiritual intelligence as a team. So define them according to you. Make them unique to you. Don't use other people's words or popular terms, or don't define the value you bring to your clients. That's a different exercise. This is just your team. How do you act, live, and relate and work together with each other, right? These are the riverbanks of your organization. So decide what you want to stand for and then stand for it. Don't deviate, right? This is going to shape your culture. So don't just articulate them and define them, but operationalize them, like hire against them, reward for them. They should be completely infused in your DNA, and everybody on the team, no matter what level, should be able to spit out those core values really quickly. So like I said, they're the easiest, most fun tool for any company. If you don't have them, you're kind of behind the times. But if you do have them and they're stuck in a drawer, or you haven't talked about them in months or even years, then you might as well not have them at all. It's time to dust them off and really make sure they're the right ones, and don't let this amazing tool go unused or undervalued. Remember that, your mission, your vision, your values, those are the glue that hold your organization together in really good times and also in really bad times. You need them. So the last intelligence is systems intelligence. And conscious leaders tend to be natural system thinkers, but this is also a skill that can take some work, and really we can get our whole team behind. System thinkers, they think big picture, and they're able to understand how the different components of the system of your organization interconnect and how they behave over time. So they can anticipate kind of the immediate issues as well as like the long-term consequences of the decisions and actions the company is taking. So given their intuitive understanding of systems, conscious leaders are excellent organizational architects, right? They understand the roots of problems. They go to the root, not just the surface of the problem. And they understand how those problems relate within the business, how they affect all the different pieces of the puzzle, right? And you're able to devise fundamental solutions that solve the problems, as opposed to quick fixes, which we can so easily as a team get in a habit of doing, right? So think about this for yourself as a systems thinker. How deeply are you thinking about the business issues that are happening in your company right now? Do you lean in even if the issue doesn't have anything to do with you or your area of work? Let me give you an illustration that might help you understand systems intelligence better. Old Chinese story about three brothers, all doctors. The oldest was known for performing dramatic procedures on patients whose diseases had reached an advanced stage. He was widely celebrated for his heroic efforts to save his patients. The middle brother was highly skilled at catching and curing diseases when they exhibited early symptoms, and he was considered good for treating minor ailments and was only admired locally. The third brother had the ability to detect the earliest trace of a disease and cure it before the patient felt any symptoms at all. But he was little appreciated and virtually unknown, but he saved many more lives than his more famous brothers. Many leaders in business lurch from crisis to crisis, right? Repeatedly allowing situations to deteriorate until they reach crisis point. Then they'll take drastic actions to solve the problem, right? Like the old saying goes, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. Too many teams we see sit in that pain before taking action to look at these problems with systems intelligence to solve them. So like the third brother, the best leaders are those who prevent most problems from arising in the first place. So the genius there, right, is that their genius and the genius of solving these problems collectively as a team, which makes it even better, can sometimes go unrewarded, but that genius is really the most effective piece of the puzzle when it comes to solving problems. That keenly developed systematic mind and sensibility. So how do we get there with this last intelligence? We need to think big picture and teach each other to think big picture, develop an accountability chart, and have a scorecard. So first, think big picture. Have a strategic plan. Get people thinking holistically about the business, right? Get everybody to consider the picture for the future and also the picture of today. Get the team together, right? Consider an operating system for your business or a way of looking at your problems. Here I write IDS. That's a tool that we like to use: identify, discuss, and solve. I like to see leaders get their team together, identify a problem, lead the discussion, right? Get all the roots of the problem out on a piece of paper, and then start charting out solutions through discussion. And after listing out all the possible solutions, cross off the Band-Aids. No Band-Aid solutions. What are the ones that are the real fixes? And get the whole team to weigh in and buy in. Secondly, to increase your system's intelligence, you need the right people sitting at the table analyzing the business together, right? If you have mission, vision, values, you're 3/4 of the way there. But you really have to have the right people on the bus to get the job done. So this, of course, is that the whole Jim Collins good to great mentality, right? Get the right people on, the wrong people off, everybody in the right seat, and everybody with clear accountability. People have to know what their roles are, and they need to know that they are the right fit for that role. We use what's called an accountability chart. It's not about creating hierarchy, right? So most of the organizations we're working with are pretty flat. It's about understanding what roles you need in the agency, and if the people you have, fit those roles, the ability, desire, and capacity to do those roles, not just day to day, but within the big picture of the company's mission and direction. Lastly, I just like to encourage people to have feedback loops and dashboards. Like, once people understand what their role is and they feel like it's the right fit, they should be reviewed and able to give feedback. So that they can know if they've met their own personal goals and if they've helped make the company's goal come to fruition. I feel like during those feedback loops, that's when the real issues arise, and we're able to figure out what are the hiccups in the company? What are the system failures? How can we get behind it? Where are the roots? Those one-on-one discussions are like gold to me. So make sure people know what they're accountable for and then hold them to it. Again, we want to get rid of that apathy or that disconnection. And then have a scorecard. It's fun. We want to know if we're winning the game. Get clear and communicate with each other, especially you leaders, right? Don't leave the room unless we all know what the game plan is. Ambiguity is unkind. A lack of purpose and direction is uninspiring at best and depressing at worst. So if you're looking for a way to get your team re-energized, give them vision, give them direction, and measure it. So in order for teams to be truly great, you need every player on the team participating fully, right? In order to achieve all of these traits that we've talked about, these 3 intelligences, you need to be a conscious leader. You need to be a human leader. You have to have a full understanding of your intelligence beyond just your ability to do the job. Actually, you have to have more than just understanding. True leaders need to transcend the self. You have to transcend yourself. If the players on your team around you have intent and are conscious players, you have the foundation of a great team. And then if you guys take those tools, you take the tools of mission, vision, a strategy, an action plan, accountability, you have all those tools to actually succeed and win. Conscious leadership is fully human leadership. It integrates the masculine and the feminine, right? The heart and the mind, the spirit and the soul. As you look around that table today, or as you consider your teammates, even if they're scattered all over the country, are we being human? Are we being conscious? Have we all transcended ourselves? Do we care about each other's own personal success? Are we leaning into that? Like I said before, we need conscious leaders and high-performing teams that are dedicated to making a positive impact now more than ever. So please make that intentional choice to be conscious and to be the change you wish to see in the world, because, well, it has to start somewhere. So I'm hoping it starts with you guys. I know many of you are doing this already, and today's just a refresher or a reminder. And for some of you, maybe it's a wake-up call to think about your job differently, to think about your team differently, and to really think about your company differently. What type of impact is your company having? Even a small impact is impacting somebody. Make it positive. So, thanks for your time. I hope you found all of this thought-provoking and helpful. If you need help in understanding these concepts better, or you want more information on anything that I talked about today, any of the tools or resources, I'd be happy to connect with you. You can reach me at traci@navigatethejourney.com, so don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again. Really enjoyed sharing this insight and information with you guys.